life gives us little signs that something needs to change, which can turn into this nagging feeling in our core that we know deep down we should not ignore. And I know that for many of us, we have felt this way about finally dealing with our clutter. But even though this is something that we can know we need to do, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's easy for us or it's something that we can just automatically accept. In fact, for many of us, we can face some pretty significant inner resistance, which can make the actual process feel like it is impossible. So if you're feeling this way, I want you to know that you are not alone. And I think that today's video could be the aha moment that you need to be able to be fully on board with starting your decluttering journey. But first, if you're new here, my name's Nena. I help people to declutter their minds and their homes using practical applications of psychology. And today we're going to be talking about one of the biggest barriers that I see that really keeps people from decluttering, which is the inner belief that hoarding our items is a way for us to save money, or the similar belief that getting rid of our items is the same as throwing our money away. And I can really see how on paper these beliefs can seem to make a lot of sense, and emotionally these statements can certainly feel true, especially if these perceptions are attached to a lot of guilt and shame. So it's natural then why so many of us, when we think about the concept of clearing clutter, we think about it in terms of what we are going to physically lose, as opposed to focusing on everything we are going to gain in this process. And because of this, we can start to experience great anxiety at even the thought of letting any of our possessions go. We can even start to invent uses for things that we have not seen or touched in years. We can start to think, well, I can't really get rid of this because, maybe there's going to be this imaginary event in the future that I may need to use it for, or maybe these things are actually going to be worth money, so I can't possibly get rid of them. And we can start to really talk ourselves out of the process. But if we were honest with ourselves, we would realize that most of the items that are cluttering up our home are things that will never be used or needed. And because of this, holding on to these items does not save us money whatsoever. In fact, it has no benefit at all. In reality, clutter can actually be extremely costly and can have a significant negative impact on our life and our mental health in many, many ways. So today I wanted to share what the real costs of clutter are, because I think that when we can really understand that by clearing this clutter, we are actually benefiting and gaining from the process instead of the reverse, it can make the idea of decluttering a lot less scary, and it can also make it a lot easier for us to let things go. So first we have the physical costs. As we all know, clutter can take up a huge amount of space in our home and make it extremely difficult for us to move around and impossible for us to actually find the things that we really do use. This can lead to a lot of unnecessary stress and frustration, and it can also be a safety hazard. When we have no physical space available, we are also a lot less likely to do things that we enjoy in our home or that would improve our life. Think of all the things that you would love to do in your house but rarely do because there's simply no space to do it in. Maybe you'd cook more or practice yoga or have a cozy little reading nook or play more games with your kids or actually invite people over. For many of us, clutter is actually robbing us of these experiences. Another way to think about it is that when our home is filled with clutter, we are actually paying for space that we cannot use. This was a huge realization for me when I started my own decluttering journey. I realized that in my own case, my home was nothing but a gigantic storage bin for items that in a lot of cases I did not even remember that I owned. So the physical cost of clutter can be a lot more significant than we think. There are also emotional and well-being costs. Now, studies clearly show us that clutter can make us feel stressed and overwhelmed, can make it difficult for us to focus and to actually be productive, and can greatly interfere with our ability to get to sleep and to stay asleep. It can also be a continuous reminder of unfinished projects that we feel guilty about, or past mistakes or unpleasant memories. And sometimes without realizing it, what we're actually hoarding is negative emotions and suffering. And this is something that I do have a full video about that I will go ahead and link down below. Visual clutter is also a constant reminder that there's work that needs to be done because we are always seeing this mess around us, and subconsciously it can make us feel really badly about ourselves because we are wondering why we can't get our clutter under control. We can start to compare ourselves to other people and think, why is it so easy for them? Why does everybody else seem to have such a nice, clean, tidy home? What's wrong with me? So we can start to really experience a lot of negative emotions. And even in cases where we've kind of become blind to the clutter, clutter really is very unsettling, and we can't truly recharge and relax in our home. In fact, it becomes the opposite. Our home becomes a source of stress and chaos. And in the spirit of self-love and self-preservation, we've got to start getting real about the fact that clutter truly is linked to all kinds of threats to our mental health, such as anxiety, depression, feelings of hopelessness, shame, guilt, and low self-esteem. These are things that we need to take extremely seriously and should be huge considerations when we are thinking about beginning a decluttering journey. The next is time and energy costs. Trying to maintain and manage our clutter takes up a lot more time and energy than we think. We have to sort it, we have to store it, we have to clean it, we also have to move it around all the time because it seems to always be in our way. In fact, studies have shown that decluttering would actually eliminate at least 40% of housework in an average home. And of course, if we have more clutter than average, that percentage is actually going to be a lot higher. And obviously, if we had less stuff, cleaning would be a lot easier and take up a lot less time. In reality, most of us don't even have the time and energy to be able to maintain all of these excess items that we are trying to store in our home. And life can be stressful and overwhelming enough without all of this clutter. So it can be a real gift to ourselves to downsize, because then we can spend that time and energy doing things that we actually care about and enjoy. Next, we have financial costs. Something we often don't realize is that clutter has financial costs that go well beyond what we paid for the actual item. So we may need to spend money on storage units or storage systems or bins or different things that we try to buy to contain all of the things that we have. Or we may need to even spend money on a cleaning service. And a lot of times we need to actually replace items that we've already purchased simply because we can't find the things we need because everything is so cluttered. We may also find that when our home is cluttered and messy, we don't have the space to do things that we would normally do, like cook. So we may end up eating out a lot more. And of course, things like that can add up very quickly. And clutter can also damage our actual home. So for example, it can block ventilation, which can lead to mold growth, and that can be a very costly repair. And believe it or not, clutter can also contribute to a lot of health problems like asthma and allergies, which can of course make us miserable, but also lead to a lot of additional medical costs. And because clutter deeply affects our focus, attention, and productivity, it has a direct and very negative impact on our career and our financial future because of the constant distraction and disorganization. We also have to consider the relationship costs. Now, this is a big one, and I do have an entire video on this topic that I will go ahead and link down in the description box below in case you need that resource. But in a nutshell, clutter can put a serious strain on our relationship with our loved ones. When two people live in a cluttered space together, it can be a huge source of tension and conflict. They may disagree about how to manage the clutter, and they can also be resentful that the clutter is there in the first place. It also can make it really difficult to connect because it's hard to relax and enjoy each other's company when you are surrounded by mess and clutter. And because we may feel ashamed or embarrassed of our living space, we're also less likely to have guests over or to spend time with friends and family. So in addition to directly impacting our relationships, it also tends to make us less social overall, which has a negative impact on our sense of happiness and well-being. And these are just some of the many costs of clutter that we do need to consider. And I know sometimes it's easy to downplay this all in our mind. We can think to ourselves, what's really the harm in living in a messy home or having too much stuff? No one else has to see it. But the truth is that for many of us, there is harm in it. It is affecting us very negatively on many different levels, a lot of which we don't always fully realize. And believe me, as someone who used to greatly struggle with mess and clutter, I know firsthand that decluttering can be a challenge, but it is always worth it, and it does truly transform your life. And if this is something that you feel like you need a little more support in, I do have an entire playlist that I will link down in the description box below that has videos about both clutter psychology and solutions, so you will have that resource. As always, I truly hope you found today's video to be insightful. If you did, please like it, share it, and definitely become a subscriber if you aren't one already. I would love it if you stayed connected. I want to thank you so much for spending time with me today and for investing in yourself. And I hope the rest of your day is extraordinary.